Hello and welcome to day 5 of the animation workout. It's day 5. Today we are looking at Mickey Mouse dialogue. See, now, gonna be honest, the dialogue section of animation is probably one of my weaker points in the whole thing, but here we are. So at the start of this, I briefly showed for about 15 seconds the sort of scale. So what I'm doing at the moment is I'm writing down sort of key points for it and what the kind of key inflections I want. So I think it says, "Hehe, so long, I'll be seeing you then, I hope." I'm pretty sure it's from The Brave Little Tailor. So I believe I'm just doing the words at the moment, which is probably pretty accurate to what I'm saying. I fixed my recording today, so uh, I'm more attuned to what I'm actually looking at. So this should be good. So yeah, looks like I'm going through the frame. So what that little chart is I don't know what it's called. I believe it's called a height map, but I could be wrong. So for dialogue, for a lot of dialogue, you have these things called highs and lows. So if you have a character that's talking like "hi," you know, you'll expect their whole body to match that sort of inflection. I'm just like, whoa, or like, so, or something like that. Whilst if they're low or something like that, it's a bit nervous. So they go like, hi, how are you? Maybe they'll like look down or something like that. But you can tell that in the audio that you receive. So, for example, with that one, the audio I received was very much. Yeah, I'm just checking the audio situation. So for the audio, for that one, I believe he starts off very positive, and then there's a few moments like the "I hope," where he'll be like, everything's silent, and that's the only thing you hear. So it's quite a big moment for it, and that's the main kind of gist of it. So dialogue is something I genuinely struggle with, or generally struggle with, and I think as these weeks progress, I definitely get better at it, experimenting with different sort of ways of doing it. But I'll say that one of the mistakes I probably made quite early on here is you'll see that I'm doing a lot of the words. So I'll be seeing you. It's not actually that far off of what you need to do, but primarily what you should be focusing on is syllables. So take for example, my name is. Well, what's a good one? So goose is probably a pretty good one to use. So you have, instead of going like goo, oos. So instead of doing the G, the O, the O, the S, and the E, you want to go to just that mouth shape that someone makes when they say the word goo, and then the mouth shape when somebody makes the word ps. So then you just have really two key mouth shapes that you're showing the audience. So you go like goo, and it flows a lot more naturally and looks a lot more natural. I don't know what I was doing here. I might have answered the door. I'm not quite sure. There are, I don't know. The problem is animation is long, so I'll be spending hours on this, and there'll be times when something happens. Oh, all my screen freezes, which is a brilliant bloody feature that I keep having. Yeah. In terms of dialogue for this, I seem to have focused on the head again. So like I said in the previous one with the whole big, medium, small, well yesterday's one, focusing on the big shapes, the medium shapes and the small shapes, it looks like the process I've gone for here is focusing on keyframes, which I think is a pretty good way of doing it. But already here I can see the ears a bit too small. And then getting in those shapes. Now there is a slight problem with this, in that I believe the first 4 weeks of this I couldn't hear the audio whilst I was whilst I was making this, so I really had to kind of, you can see why I've done, I'll explain this 222357 thing I've done is because I just had to hear the audio back and back and back and back, and I couldn't like slow down the playing through it all, so I really had to kind of get the gist of which seconds were which which seconds were which animation or which frame, which is not a great way of doing it. I've now fixed the issue so I can actually hear the audio in the program. To do that, for OpenTunes, you want to download FPMGG, I think it's called, and create a root file destination for it. And if you just get that down, you'll solve the problem. This is another issue that occasionally happens in After Effects, not After Effects, in OpenTunes, where it will just randomly shrink frames. So you'll see for a second there it was just really tiny. The reason that happens is primarily because the solution to it, I don't know why it happens, but the solution to it is to use the scaling tools and scale it back up to the right size, just eyeballing it, and then keep animating and working on it, and eventually you'll go back to that phrase where you've resized it, and it'll be huge, and just delete that, and all sorts. I have no idea why it does this, and I don't really, it really annoys me. So if you want to learn dialogue, a good book I've been using a lot throughout this is Preston Blair's Animation 1, which has a whole section on mouth shapes to do it. So you have the sort of open mouth shapes and closed mouth shapes of things, and I probably got better at a lot of dialogue animation afterwards, but I don't know, it's dialogue's hard. The problem is because you wanna act a lot in dialogue, because it just as a sort of frame of reference, but I didn't. I went too far. Also, I can see the volumes here are very much different. Like this frame with the sort of hand waving is very much the frame with the hand waving is very much, the head's a lot bigger in the volume than this frame where he's sort of rubbing the back of his hand. That is one of the, and his hand's losing a lot of volume. The problem is this is one of the issues with the challenges, because you're rushing and things like that, you make mistakes, things like that. But I think it's actually good to make those mistakes, because it's nice to know where your weaknesses are and things like that. If a lot of people can go through life and go, why is this not working? Why does this not look right? And they'll ask people and they don't overly know, they've wanted a great answer, but this is that's just how it is. So I think it was actually really useful to have into this. So I thought this was a really good way for this workout. Yeah, I'm doing it again, drawing the nose thing. Um, to be honest, I didn't do a lot of planning because it was such a short thing, but I think I would have benefited a lot more from. And this is just the problem with such a short kind of time frame. I believe I had things to do today in that day. But one of the major key problems is the consistent, no, consistency. Because I have a lack of plan, I'm sort of making a problem of fly. And if I did go through it again, it looks like having things like arcs and motion paths, making sure the volumes are right, going for that big, medium, small thing, solid keyframe work, all of those things would have made a lot of these animations better, personally. Because a lot of them ended up going quite bad when I was either coming up with a very key important image just on the fly, or not really knowing which motion path to go, and just deciding to go for this straight ahead animation. Not always great. Let's check if I'm at the right point. So I think I ended this animation today with a little thing saying it's ugly, but it's okay. But I think it's quite an important skill to just accept that something is bad and moving on. Because I think if you spend too long, like if I spend the next week polishing this animation specifically, yeah, it'd probably look pretty nice, but I've just made a kind of subpar or like decent animation look good. You know, it's not, whilst as it is now, I'm more regretful. And I think that regret will probably stem more growth in animation than going back and fixing everything. Just because I'll look at it more and go, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that. And then the next time I do an animation like this, those thoughts will be more ingrained because I don't want to disappoint myself again. At least I think. I don't really know. I could be wrong. But whatever. It's a shorter episode today, primarily because I didn't do any colouring in or cleaning up. It's just the sketch, which maybe I should have. So this is the last day of week 1 actually. This is a 1/8 of the way completed. There are a few days in this challenge that I missed, but sometimes life just gets in the way of things, so just power through it. I think the problem is with a lot of things, and I think I say this in one of the videos, I'm not sure, is that when you look at these sort of things and you go, oh, I missed that day, oh, I can't do the next day, whatever. I think when you do that, when you start thinking about the things you've missed instead of the things you're going to do, you never actually improve, or you never get past that mental hurdle. So instead of being focused on yesterday, just focus on tomorrow. So if I miss a day in this challenge, I just, I missed it, whoops, and I go on to the next day. As long as it's not a consistent pattern, things like that, it's bad, yeah, and I feel awful about it, because then I'm like, oh, I didn't get to do this, or I didn't get to do that. But yeah, I think I missed 3 days or 2 days. Mostly because I managed to pick the 1 month with about 3 bank holidays. I don't know how the hell I did that. And normally it's a bank holiday, I travel up to my parents. And it just becomes a bit of a pain to set up all my animation stuff. I think I talk about that in one of the episodes. Because it becomes quite... It's a good advice for people who live quite nomadic lives. And what I mean by that is you're just always travelling around, going from one place to another. You never really have a place you call home. And it's a little sad because, you know, you want to set up all these things, but I think those people strive for more things. God, what the hell's going on here? You know when you can see it, and you can see that you've done something wrong? So this is all sped up by 4 times, I think, or 5 times, 1 or 2. Which seems to be roughly the kind of norm for this. It's quite interesting that some days I spend a lot longer than others. I think there's only 2 animations this challenge where I've done them on the following day. And the last one I think is that because it took me so long, and God, Kyle, focus on the volumes, Jesus Christ. This is why we do volumes. Look how off model he's going. Yeah. Like that frame, God, it's what teddy bear is, no mouse is. This is the importance of strong keyframes. It is also the reason you see a lot more animators nowadays on YouTube and things like that, focusing more on kind of singular keyframes. So what I mean by that is you'll see an animation that's more, what's the word? More limited, I guess. So they'll hang on frames for a lot longer. So this frame here, or the next frame you're looking at, will be on for 6 frames, and it will encompass 6 drawings. And maybe the hand will shake or something like that, as opposed to drawing every single frame. That's the style of it. Personally, I think if you can get this sort of drawing every frame style down pat, you actually can get a really beautiful animation that you can't achieve in the other one. But, you know, that's just me. And I also think you need a lot more planning for this sort of animation. This just takes longer, really, in every sense of the word. The other way that people do nowadays is they pick characters that are more... They don't really have a volume and geometry to them. They're more built like slime. So things like hands, joints, skulls and things like that, they'll just slosh them around. And they'll keep the volume more consistent, sure, but it will generally be there wasn't much volume retention anyway. I'd love to do this again, actually. I'd love to draw some keyframes for this. And then actually animate them. It'd be really fun. So, should be coming near the end pretty soon, actually. I think. So, personally, I hope you enjoy this. for me, this is a very cathartic experience. This whole doing an animation workout, because it's a lot of characters I love and never really get to animate, and it also highlights my improvements I need to make, and as well as what I need to achieve. I will say after I did this, I've definitely had a lot of ideas of animations I want to do that are actually more high quality, keeping consistent volumes, working on backgrounds, just a lot of things like that. But time will tell. Oh, that's another thing that's used quite often nowadays is, to be honest, resizing and selecting pieces. So people will copy and paste like a leg or something like that and then kind of rework it in. I wonder if I'll fix this.
Well, so long. I'll be seeing you. I hope.